Echoes Hugh. Audio Productions. Smooth, sweet sounds. Echoes Hugh Audio Productions proudly presents a J.S. Mensah audio work.
Hi everybody, and welcome to my brand new podcast, Would You Adam and Eve It, with me, Del McCamley. Keep up to date with content from Echoes Hugh Audio Productions by following us on TikTok, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. Don't forget to follow, like and comment. In the next 20 minutes or so, I'll be talking about issues that affect us all on a national, local and global level. As the famous Blues Brothers once said, issues that affect you, me, them, everybody. Because everybody needs somebody. Somebody to love, miss and kiss and keep you all clued up as just what the hell is going on out there. Because if I don't tell you, then nobody will. Definitely not any of our competitors. So sit back, kick back, relax, grab yourself a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, glass of whiskey, glass of vodka. Oh, glass of whiskey, glass of vodka? What the hell? Who starts drinking at this time of the day? What? My producer just said everybody. No, man, that's not true. Not everybody. Anyway, just relax and know that Del is going to get in there and wiggle and jiggle out the workings of just what the heck is going on in that jolly game we call life. You know it makes sense. So stick with me. I'll put you right. Okay, moving on. Donald Trump. Let's talk about him for a while. In a recent State of the Union address, Joe Biden barely mumbled his way through all the things he had to mumble about, making some glaring cock-ups. Boobies like calling the President of Egypt the President of Mexico. Poor Joe squinted at his cue cards, trying to decide whether he should just be watching it or reading from it. His wife, Jill Tracy Jacobs Biden, has told the press that this is because Joe shouldn't really be doing any speeches after 8 p.m. What? No speeches after 8 p.m.? Since when should the US president be tucked up in bed after 7? What happens if there's a nuclear war? Although Joe is doing slightly better than Trump at the moment, there's a chance that Trump may pop up again and romp to victory like some trite horror film dramatis persona. Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th or Michael Myers in Halloween. Can you imagine it? Biden's ratings are slipping because of his age and disgruntlement over a sagging economy. It's interesting to note that, compared to the European economy, the Americans are still partying all the way to the bank. The trouble with the way it's going in American politics, and especially where Trump is concerned, is that Trump isn't so much a political figure than some hypnotic, stone-mad cult leader. His fan base is off the scale. Trump is very scary indeed. Is he the devil? The bizarre thing is that grassroots fundamentalists in America, and we're talking about the Christians here, are a huge part of his core fan base. You'd think they'd know the signs and heed the warnings. If it looks like the devil, talks like the devil, and walks like the devil, then it is the devil. That should be ample enough warning to steer them away from the mesmerising belly wash that flies from his flabby lips. Trump reminds me of a low-punching boxer, bullying and ridiculing his opponents with unscrupulous shots to the nether regions, while his cronies cackle on the sidelines chanting, "Donald, Donald, cause the jerk maximum pain, make America great again." This is a man who's just been fined $350 million and banned from doing business in New York for doctoring his business accounts. This is a man who's up on 4 major criminal charges, totaling 91 separate indictments. Just think about that for a moment. This is totally unbelievable. So this is a guy who was a president before. He's running for president again. He's got all these charges against him, and it looks like he may very well walk into the White House again. I'll just let that sink in a sec. And this is a man who's been accused of paying undisclosed amounts of money to a porn star by the name of Stormy Daniels. Oh, Mr. President, ooh la la. I mean, you couldn't make this up, could you? This is a man who's been caught hiding classified documents in his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. The list goes on. This is a man who's whipped up dystopian-style riots inside the White House with his minions baying for blood because he lied about vote rigging. This is a man who's pressured the chief election officer in Georgia during an election to find him an extra 11,780 votes. This is a man whose views on climate change in his 2024 campaign was to drill, 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 like a sadistic dentist high on his own nitrous oxide. Think Steve Martin in Little Shop of Horrors. This is a man who's been quoted as saying he'd encourage Russia to do whatever the hell they want to any country that didn't cough up funds for the spending guidelines on joining NATO, a comment that's been described by the White House as unhinged. This is a man who suggested that Americans inject themselves with bleach to beat COVID. This is a man who wanted to buy Greenland. This is a man who said that nuclear weapons should be fired into hurricanes to prevent them from causing damage. And, as if all this hellish list of insane claptrap wasn't enough, this is a man who, when being accused of rape by Judge E. Jean Carroll, denied this by saying that he couldn't have done it because she wasn't his type. Where's the world heading, people? What is this man's appeal to the American public? Why does a substantial section of the American public, and that's quite huge, have such intense devotion to him? Maybe it's because of the obsession with celebrity culture in America, a culture where business and celebrity collide and coexist. I mean, all you got to do is look at the Kardashians, Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey. In the Venn diagram of popularity, the Donald is up there. All the possibilities of this horror show and where this man has got to so far have shocked European governments, who have gone into throes of convulsive panic at the possibility of this man ever regaining power. They haven't foreseen and planned for the terrible certainty of Trump even getting this far. So, what would America look like with Trump leaning over the Oval Office desk and staining it with his greasy fingers? If Trump wins, it would be 4 years of total carnage. Trump would plough straight into total retribution for all the perceived wrongs against him. Anybody that's ever done him wrong, he would go straight after them. He said this in statements. If Trump wins, the US Army would be deployed to wipe out immigration across southern borders as well. One thing that US pro-democracy grass groups are quaking about is that Trump could deploy his military minions to smash out any dissent. That's anyone that speaks against him. So how would he do this? Well, first of all, there's something called the 1807 Insurrection Act. This was first put in use by JFK to stop segregationist attempts to block the integration of universities in Mississippi and Alabama in the 60s, and then used by George W. Bush to stop the LA riots. Trump's used this before to stamp out the George Floyd protests in Washington in 2020. A former White House official told NBC News last January, the Insurrection Act is a legal order. There will be military officers who will follow that legal order. So if Trump orders it to happen, it will happen. Trump would also try to round up millions of illegal immigrants through something called the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. What this means is it would enable Trump to deploy both Homeland Security and immigration and customs enforcement. How would he get away with this pile of absolute drivel? Well, the first thing he'd do is by recognising Mexican drug cartels as enemy states. This would make Trump enable him to tar the whole of Mexico as a potential nemesis by recognising them as smugglers and migrant criminals. I'm not making this up. Trump's love of Mexico and Mexicans has been well documented, let's not forget. Trump himself has even pronounced Joe Biden as a danger to democracy, on the basis that Biden's handling of Mexican immigration is a conspiracy to overthrow the United States of America. So, Trump could go ahead and remove anyone he damn well pleases. That's basically anyone who he doesn't like and anyone who stands in his way. Following a precedent first brought about by Richard Nixon, I am not a crook, in which he fired 2 attorney generals in 1973 for not going after the special prosecutor investigating Watergate, Trump has sworn to go after the entire Biden family. Direct White House control, for example, when Trump becomes president, would allow him to put in place what he promised in March 2023, retribution. Yep, once he gets his grubby paws on the White House keys, Trump has promised to bring in regulatory agencies to send his critics, not least in the media, toppling down, bringing the television regulator, the Federal Communications Commission under his complete control. Trump already has Fox News in his back pocket anyway, who labelled Biden as a wannabe dictator. Again, I'm not making this up. My producer's looking at me as if I've gone stone mad. I'm not making this up. Even worse, Trump could, once in power, pardon all of his mates that have ever been convicted of anything, ever. Called the henchman pardon, again, I'm not making this up. This would be used to license violence by his allies and, I quote, reward illegal activities that accrue to his benefit. This includes anyone that donned Viking hats and weapons and stormed the Capitol in 2021. Then there's Schedule F. What's Schedule F, I might hear you ask? Well, what Schedule F essentially is, it gives Trump the power to execute executive orders to bring in favourite civil service policy advisors. That's bringing in all his mates, essentially, as political appointees, while at the same time firing 50,000 civil servants and replacing them with Trump loyalists. It's also been called the urge to purge. According to Jonathan Swan of the New York Times, people close to Trump are already drawing up lists of disloyal officials in the national security apparatus who will be targeted for retribution. This proposal would list a litany of other measures, such as ending labour union protections, to fire any federal employee who has worked on policies the new Trump administration opposes, bringing in an ideologically based civil service test. I'd like to say that Trump has read Orwell's 1984, but that would be a bit of a stretch, wouldn't it? Anyway, that would be the good old USA under a Trump administration. Oh, hang on, sorry, what? My producer's just told me that his wife came over to the USA on a tourist visa. Is that true? Really? Really? Okay. All right. Thanks for that. Missed that one out. Okay. So what would the world look like with the Trump leaning over the Oval Office and staining it with his greasy fingers, putting his fingers all over the Oval Office desk? Well, if Trump wins, he'd certainly leave NATO, that's for sure. If Trump wins, oil and gas drilling will increase with all the reckless excitement of a juvenile left alone with a set of power tools. If this happens, we can ditch all net zero targets. If Trump wins, Ukraine would be finished. Trump had said he'd stop the war in 24 hours, which would assuredly mean that Zelensky would have to accept a crummy deal from rootin' tootin' Putin. This would encourage Putin to re-energise his troops, set up shop in Kiev and, inevitably, bully other parts of Europe. If Trump wins and grants Russia absolute power, it would mean that China could see this as an opportunity to invade Taiwan. Let's face it, Trump's views on Taiwan have been reported to be non-existent. John Bolton, Trump's national security advisor, recalls one incident where Trump put it to the tip of a Sharpie pen and said, "This is Taiwan," and then put it to his colossal presidential desk and said, "And this is China." Even though the Chinese military isn't up to a full-scale invasion just yet, the implications for Taiwan could be disastrous, with blockades and Chinese Navy ships steaming into Taiwanese waters. This is being reinforced recently with a Chinese spokesman saying the US will always pursue America first and Taiwan can change from a chess piece to a discarded chess piece at any time. So, segregation would spiral. Europe would no longer have any protection from one of its most powerful allies, leaving Europe open to increased terrorist attacks. Global warming would probably increase by 9% through escalating fossil fuel production. Putin would grab a huge chunk of Ukraine, rubbing his hands together, drooling over other parts of Europe. China would possibly use force against Taiwan. Whenever I've seen Trump at one of his rallies on TV, he's always sent my teeth chattering and heart palpitations. Given me heart palpitations. I don't think I'm the only one to have noticed this, but Trump has always reminded me of the menacing psychopathic political figure Greg Stilson from Stephen King's novel The Stand, The Dead Zone. Or Jack Nicholson portraying the Joker, thrusting his leering face forward and saying, "Wait till they get a load of me." Anybody remotely worried? The British government are. You can bet your life on that. But rather than preparing for the likelihood of this grinning, pointy-haired orange shark rising up from the depths, like another grisly sequel to the Jaws movie franchise, governments, ours especially, have been scurrying around, obsessing over a general election and blaming each other for the country's failings. We should have seen this coming. And we didn't. So again, the question, what is Trump's appeal? I'll leave you a quote from the sociologist Richard Sennett, who once, whilst researching his new book, attended a Trump rally. Even though Sennett found the rally a frightening experience, he had this to say. Trump is a great performer, his timing is perfect, he is a master of eye contact. He always seems to be focused on someone particular even when speaking to large crowds. Crowds get caught up in the immediate moment and lose their sense of what's real. Even me, I confess. The rallies are electric. I've been Del McCamley, and this has been Would You Adam and Eve It? Don't be shy. Tune in for next time. See ya!
Thanks for listening to an Echoes Hue audio productions project. Smooth, sweet sounds. Keep up to date with content from Echoes Hue Audio Productions by following us on TikTok, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. Don't forget to follow, like and comment. Would You Adam and Eve It is written and presented by Del McCamley. The podcast is directed and produced by J.S. Mensah. Our theme music is by Oleg Mazur.